Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, Brewers Outlet, and NIL Game Changers. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Purdy Insurance, Brewers Outlet, and Sunbury Motor Company. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
And this half hour brought to you by Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, life, business, boat, motorcycle. Multitude of insurance needs. Purdy Insurance handles them all. And does everything they can to save you money. Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. And it's time for another great Tuesday with Neal. My friend, always welcome. Thank you so much for carving out time for us.
The pleasure is all mine, as always. I'm glad you guys keep a spot for me.
Oh, that's an easy call on my part. All right, so now we have watched the Steelers lose in a game and beaten by Joe Flacco again, of all things. What did you see Sunday that maybe you hadn't seen yet for the Steelers?
I think my big takeaway was the fact that they really got out-coached. And I know that most people use that as an opportunity to rip Mike Tomlin for essentially losing the game. But you got to take your hat off to Shane Steichen and his staff and what they did. They reinvented their team. What you saw out of the Colts in Week 4 was not at all what they were doing in the first 3 weeks. And what they basically said defensively was the Steelers have a serious lack of experience along their interior offensive line, and we're going to challenge that. And we're going to do that in a way that can be kind of risky, but we feel like they're not going to be able to handle it. They essentially, their interior defensive linemen shot gaps around Zach Frazier pretty much the entire first half. The second half was, the damage had been done by that point, but they made Frazier get off the block and get to the side very quickly. And that put a ton of pressure on both him and Spencer Anderson, a player that doesn't have a lot of experience, Mason McCormick at that point. Then James Daniels got hurt. And what they were doing, that strategy worked even better at that point because you're looking at a complete lack of experience along your interior offensive line. And when you have monsters like Brenson Buckner, or DeForest Buckner, able to penetrate at will, it destroyed their running game. It greatly affected their passing game. And in that, they allowed the Colts offense to have the freedom to go out and make some plays. And from there, you saw how potent that offense can be. I mean, I don't know if you noticed that in the time Anthony Richardson was in there, that first throw he made, that was a high-level throw. I mean,
sure
it was 17 yards down the field. That sail route, a 3-step drop, he put it right on the money. That's a really tough throw to make. And he hit it like it was nothing. Mm-hmm. And that's intimidating. I mean, you saw that. You saw the offense really pick up after they hit that. They clearly had planned that. They wanted that throw. They wanted that situation. And they got it. And they rolled early. It took the Steelers' defense a bit to get their footing. And on top of that, some hay was made out of offensive coordinator Jim Bob Cooter saying that they had a plan for T.J. Watt, as if, he's not allowed to have a plan for T.J. Watt. the bad part is he did. They shut him down by and large for the most part of the game. Now, usually fans will yell about holding and this and that. Okay, fine, whatever. The bottom line is Watt, to my count, Watt made one play in that game. If you are a team that requires your edge defender to make 4 or 5 plays a game in order to win, you might not have all that balanced of a team. And you might be the Pittsburgh Steelers, because that's what happened. Essentially, they did not get the splash play late in the game like they have so many times with Watt. I don't ever want to say he's a non-factor, because clearly he's a factor. He's the number one priority of their offense. But Indianapolis' offense was very effective for a large chunk of that game, and it took the Steelers' defense a bit too long to get back into it by the time their offense figured out what was going on and was able to move. That's why, it was kind of one-sided in the first half. Indianapolis did a great job, very different-looking team than what they were. Pittsburgh was able to get back into it, because I think player for player, Pittsburgh's probably better. But coaching mattered in this game. I thought Shane Steichen did a better job creating a plan to beat his opponent than Mike Tomlin did.
You're Minka Fitzpatrick. How are you supposed to play that play? I mean, I don't quite understand. I think you have to have a feel for the game. And I know Richardson got hurt on the play, but I don't think Fitzpatrick did anything wrong.
No, I mean, on that particular play, Anthony Richardson's not a small man. Okay, no. They have a designed run aiming for contact around the 5 to the 3 yard line, with the effort of, with the idea in mind that he's able to roll off and bowl forward and get the ball across the pylon. Fitzpatrick is coming in to take on a guy that is 75% larger than he is. Guys like Minka Fitzpatrick have to have contact courage in those situations, and they're out of a job. You've got to go in ready to hit somebody. Now, you don't expect the injury that Richardson had previously sustained, but Richardson basically gave up on the play, but at a point that he wasn't able to safely slide or to show that he's giving himself up. There's a point in which you can't hold up. There's contact that's going to be made, and where Richardson was just a very different type of posture than he would have in any other play. He tried to give himself up. Fitzpatrick went into him, I think, recognized what was going on. He bumped him a little bit. It wasn't, there wasn't anything wrong with that. That's the one everybody yelled at, but that's not the one they flagged. They flagged the one that the ball was clearly well past the receiver down the sideline. Fitzpatrick pulls up. He doesn't barrel into him, but it's close enough that there's going to be some contact. He didn't out smash into him. That's not the spirit of the rule. It's not the type of play that they're trying to eliminate from the game. That's more of a, we're colleagues. I could have hit you if you caught the ball, just so you know that could have happened. That wasn't a penalty. I think, honestly, the official in review, if he doesn't agree that wasn't a penalty, he's going to be told that wasn't a penalty, because as Mike Tomlin even admitted in his press conference today, he talked to the head of officiating. They said that it wasn't. It's not something that should have been flagged. Obviously, Tomlin didn't think it should be flagged. I don't think there's any Steelers fan that thought it should be flagged. I wouldn't be surprised if the receiver didn't think it should have been flagged. It happens, unfortunately. It's a bad call in kind of a tough spot. But you get that they want to err on the side of caution. But you have to understand there are examples of, I don't want to necessarily call it incidental contact, but that wasn't aggressive. It wasn't forceful. They happened to bump into each other after the ball had landed. Now, if Fitzpatrick launches into his head, then yes, that's a penalty. If he's hitting him 5 seconds down the field in that same fashion, maybe that's a penalty. What happened there, though, is that's not anything that's causing any major concern. It's not causing health issues down the line for players. That's just football. I think, in a perfect world, he pulls up completely and does everything he possibly can to avoid the player, but that's not realistic. He's got to be on that edge, and it was close enough to say he's pulling up. If he happens to bump into him after the fact, so be it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so they did come back in this game, Was there anything in that comeback that is a sign of anything, or is it just they fell short?
To be honest, I think people should be encouraged because what you saw is for the fourth game in a row, the Steelers are a considerably better second-half team than their opponent is. Yeah. And I know that may not seem like it's much, but it matters because it's the one trend they do have. They're 3-1. I think they got a pretty decent Falcons team on a bad game. I think they beat kind of a bad Broncos team. They had plenty of opportunities to beat, I think, a fairly mediocre Colts team. Where they are right now, though, is a team that is identifying what their opponent is doing and making changes to their plan, to their technique, going over what they need to isolate those things, fix them, and improve on the things that they're trying to do. Their quarterback has played better, considerably better, in the second half than he has in the first for 4 games in a row. I would assume Justin Fields will start again this week. We'll see. You never know exactly. Mike Tomlin's not really going to give this away, certainly not this early in the week. But I think you have a player that is getting a lot more comfortable, especially in the second half. After they've seen some things, after they figured out what the opponent is doing, they're attacking a bit more. We saw another classic example of the best and the worst of George Pickens. You hope you can get just the good things of him straight through in a game, and maybe that changes the outcome. And I think it very well could have in this particular game. The right play call in that particular instant. I understand Pickens is trying to make a play up the sideline like that, but he's holding the ball in such a way that it makes it seem like he's thinking about diving for the pylon. He's 7 yards shy of the pylon. I mean, it's another example to me in my mind. I don't think George Pickens knows where he is on the field a lot of the times, and that's a concern. That's a problem, but it's something that's fixable. Justin Fields completed a lot of passes late in that game. They scored in 3 consecutive drives when Fields was playing his best football. They melted down in the last 4 plays of the game, which was unfortunate. But overall, you saw the level of play you would hope from a veteran quarterback, from a better offense, and from a defense that was trying to make up for kind of a poor outing in the first half, to the point where they came back from 17-0 down, from 17-3 down at halftime, and put together a set of plays in 3 phases of the game where they could have tied, if not won the game, with 2 minutes to go. They had the ball down 3. It could have been ultimately an example of the need to start perhaps better a little bit earlier, but overcoming the adversity that they faced right away with a limited clock on the road. I thought they were pretty close to doing that. I thought they were going to. In fact, I expected a touchdown on that final drive, just the way that they had been going, and the way that Indy's defense really just kind of lost the edge that they had. That's a good takeaway. I didn't imagine that they were going to win 17 games this season, so it doesn't surprise me that they would have lost. The concern would be of the first 4 teams that they played, this is the one I would have bet on them to win. I think they match up much better with Indianapolis than they did with anybody else. But again, it goes back to what I was saying. I think Shane Steichen did a phenomenal job, and the coaching battle was pretty clearly on Indy's side, and that ultimately won them the game. Injuries don't help Pittsburgh either. It's something they're going to have to figure out this week. But it's not bad. That's a pretty good first quarter of the season, from what you could have realistically thought for the Steelers. Not a bad start to the year.
And now they've got the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football at 8:20. So what's been your opinion of what we're seeing from Dallas to this point? Because Lawrence is going to be out, and I think the Parsons has to be iffy. What's your thought on them?
Yeah, Parsons doesn't look real good from what I've heard to this point. Dallas is streaky. I thought last week against the Giants, and I know that the Giants aren't exactly expected to win the Super Bowl, but that was a must-win game for Dallas. They knew that. You were going to get a game where your star players are going to take over themselves. They're going to if they have to, they're going to play off script. They're going to do what they have to do in whatever situation to win that game. It was a desperation game. How good the Cowboys are as a team right now That's more of the question. And I don't know. I mean, they've got star power. We've seen it. They have an offense that can put points on the board. They've built themselves that way. It's just for one reason or another, they don't ever really seem to be able to put all of it together. So you're going into every game they play wondering if this is a team that can beat you 40-10, or it's a team that is going to commit 5 turnovers, miss a bunch of tackles, and play themselves out of a victory. I'm not sure which it is. I know that this really tests the idea of, Mike Tomlin is a coach that seems to have his team much better for home primetime games than any other time. It's a tough matchup for Dallas in that sense, but I really think injuries are going to play a huge part in this for both teams. You're down 3 starting edge rushers if you lose Lawrence as well as Parsons for Dallas. Highsmith looks like he's going to be out again. Can they contain T.J. Watt the same way Indianapolis did? That took a lot of effort. The Steelers are going to need probably a little bit more up front, probably some more action from their middle linebackers, which is something I think they can do. An enormous test for Joey Porter as well as Devontae Jackson, who's playing well above expectation right now in a secondary that's done a pretty good job. If it gets the pass rush in front of it, can the Steelers put all those things together to slow down what should be and what is individually a very potent, very powerful Cowboys offense playing in Pittsburgh? It's going to be tough. I was talking to a guy that writes for the Cowboys the other day. It just, a lot of this feels like that 2016 game where the Steelers went 0 for 5 on 2-point conversions, and ultimately it came down to the Cowboys having the ball late, and something happened. I think it was a Sean Davis run blitz that missed, and Ezekiel Elliott ran for like 40 yards, literally untouched, just through a gap, the most simple play in the world. The Steelers lost. I forget the final, like 38-35 or something like that, but a high-scoring game, back and forth, very exciting second half. It wouldn't surprise me if it ends up being something like that. This is the type of game where I could see the Steelers offense connecting on a few bigger plays, perhaps, than they have up to this point.
It's interesting, though, as you reference the Cowboys' star power. They do have star power. But to me, it's a team that has star power, but you have to fill in around your star power, and that's the part where I think the Cowboys have not done well. They have not filled in well around their stars, whatever the money situation happens to be.
Now, this is a theory that I don't think would gain a whole lot of popularity if I ever wrote it or went public with it. But I would suggest this. You look back at the last decade, Mike Tomlin's Steelers were loaded offensively. Very strong offensive line, high-level quarterback, running back, wide receiver. And that made them, in a way, kind of a house of cards. One injury really screwed up a lot of their plans, because how do you prepare for depth behind guys like that? I mean, literally in 2014, they lost both of their running backs at one point. One, because he took a cheap shot at midfield in Week 16 in a win over Cincinnati, and the other was cut because he got into a fight with the team's linebackers coach because he left the field early because he wasn't playing. How do you play backups to be ready to go, to be in a position where they want to be behind the star players? Not speaking to whose job should be what, who ought to be doing what. It's what happened. And I think Dallas, to some extent, when you sign all those guys, when you have all of them, they're locked in place. CeeDee Lamb is their most explosive running back.
Yes.
They don't have a running back of note. Yeah. He's a big game player. He's a big-time player. You get him the ball, good things happen. You're paying him that much, and he's that impactful of a player, you got to get him the ball 15 times a game. Yeah. Conversely, look at the New England Patriots back in 2016. They laid waste to the Steelers in the AFC Championship game. That game was never competitive. Le'Veon Bell went down early. That was the Steelers' entire team. They didn't have anything else. House of cards. I don't think Gronk was Gronk on that team. I think he was out for the year that season.
Right.
They had nothing offensively as far as individual talent goes. But what they did have was 26 guys on offense who could rotate in and out, play two different positions, and do all kinds of stuff that the Steelers were not even remotely prepared to handle defensively. So which one do you want? Do you want the star power or do you want the depth? It seemed to me like Belichick built all of his teams with the idea in mind that if we don't have the stars, we don't have people we are forced to get the ball to. And that was the Steelers back in those days. They couldn't beat New England because of that. Dallas, I think, is a good example of what the Steelers were back then. They have some great players. Individually, you think they would do a lot more, but then they don't. And it makes you wonder, why is that? Is it because they put their entire game plan every single week very easily on film because it has to be, Dak Prescott. It has to be CeeDee Lamb. There are only two guys that can run the ball. They're not particularly good. This is where they're going with everything. It's not too hard to figure out. New England reinvented their offense in the bye week that they earned every year before the playoffs. It's because they went out specifically, found a bunch of guys that can do well in two situations, and that's it. Mm-hmm. You put a bunch of those guys together, they have 20 different situations that they can play to, and interchangeable pieces that make it really hard to prepare for. Dallas is not like that. Dallas is pretty much what you see is what you get. And I think that makes them a bit easier to beat than perhaps their overall talent level should be. Now, I say all that, but you put Micah Parsons on the field, and he'll wreck anybody's plan for anything at any time. If he gets out there and plays, he's absolutely a factor. I mean, in my opinion, he's right there with Watt as far as defensive MVPs, guys that legitimately win games for their team from the defensive side of the ball. There aren't too many of them over the last 10 years in the league, in my opinion. Aaron Donald, T.J. Watt, and Micah Parsons. These are game record defensive players, and the way the game is played, there's just not too many of those. So if they get Parsons at close to 100%, he can do plenty of damage on his own.
Always a pleasure, sir. Appreciate it very much. You're the best.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Neal Coolong. Here on News Radio 1070 W.
Other realtors have vacant homes. At Pest Properties, ours come occupied and ready to invest. Looking to relocate your larvae? Try the Petrie residence. This rustic home features thousands of crevices to squirm in through, vaulted ceilings for our wall crawlers, and an outdoor bird bath teeming with mosquito eggs. So kick up your 6 hairy legs and sign today.
Before pests move in, Terminix it. With over 95 years of experience, we'll help keep your home off the pest market. Visit Terminix.com today.
Okay.
Party time, game time, or just fun time. Doesn't matter what time it is because it's Brewers Outlet time. The beverage supermarket has the area's largest beer selection. Imports, microbrews, ciders, and domestics. Pick from over 100 ice-cold 12-packs and dozens of 24-ounce singles. Soda, snacks, hot sauces, fresh roasted peanuts. Make it one-stop party shopping, and don't forget the pickle bar. So whatever you're celebrating or just doing it up, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury wants to see you. And thank you for your years of patronage.
Hi, this is Season. For over 100 years, the Purdy Insurance Agency has been protecting families and businesses of the greater Susquehanna Valley and beyond. With the experience of our trained and knowledgeable staff, you can rest assured that your needs will be evaluated and met by some of the industry's best representatives. No matter what your insurance needs are, call Purdy Insurance today at 570-286-5855. Visit our website at purdyinsurance.com or check us out on Facebook to see what we can do for you.
Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
And this half hour brought to you by Brewers Outlet. You'll need plenty of it this half hour. Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket, imports, domestics, microbrews, the best selection of beer anywhere. Wine coolers, water, soft drink, snacks. They roast their peanuts fresh and out every day. 6 great flavors of slushies. Pickle bar, led by the barrels and the dills, indeed second to none. Another big tailgate this weekend. Stock up now at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Todd, you all braced?
I'm seatbelted in.
Good. All right. Here he is, Captain Cranky, Matt Catrillo.
Hey, I deserve to be cranky after the embarrassment slop fest that I saw on Sunday afternoon.
Why? What did the kids do this time?
Nothing to do with the kids, but it was the kid that's trying to lead this Philadelphia Eagle football team that I'm a little bit cranky about. So let's just go in chronological order. So John Clark of NBC Sports Philly reported Nick Sirianni's main message apparently going into this game. And we know it was going to be a hot one. They were going to be shorthanded with no Lane Johnson, no A.J. Brown, no Devontae Smith. I get it. So Sirianni tried to make it as playing make it on the importance of leaning on each other and being able to celebrate with each other, be selfless, all that other stuff, and playing for each other. Well, then you saw what happened in the first quarter and a half. It's one thing where I also thought, besides being shorthanded, besides the heat, that this team was going to come out flat because last week's win against New Orleans became an emotional win that didn't have to be, but it did. So I thought the Eagles expelled a lot of energy, and they were just going to come out flat and not play well this week. So I did expect that, but I still expect you to at least gain a yard through a quarter and a half. They were outgained 254-0 in the first quarter and a half. So it's one thing to come out flat, but to not gain a single yard through a quarter and a half, I'm sorry. That is unacceptable, and that is an absolute embarrassment. So obviously, nobody got the concept here, and I also said last week that Nick Sirianni had the chance to try to right the ship because it looked like, especially after the way things ended last week in New Orleans, that he still had this locker room. When you say something like that, and then, like I said, I expected the team to still come out flat after an emotional win last week, but when you come out there and you give absolutely no effort, look lifeless, look like you're not even ready to play, then this is a completely different story. So what happened last week got thrown out the window in that first quarter and a half, and it also proved to me that the message is not getting through anymore to this football team. And now it looks like we're going to be stuck with this for the rest of the year because Jeffrey Lurie refuses to make changes during the season. If you're going to make a change, it'd be now going into the bye week, but apparently that's not going to happen because it's Tuesday heading into the bye week, and if you were going to make a move, you would do it yesterday or after the game. I would have done it at halftime of the game yesterday. That game was so bad. And here's something else that I said about this team as this game was kind of unraveling for the Eagles and they were getting killed early, and it's 21-0 early in this game. I said something on X that I thought I'd never ever say, and I don't want to say again. I wanted the Eagles to continue to get embarrassed and blown out the way they did because then maybe that would make Lurie finally get rid of this fraud of a head coach. Obviously, that didn't happen. So now we get to the point where the Eagles are slowly getting back in this game, showing signs of life, and they're getting into the red zone. They get the 2-point off the blocked extra point, and then Jalen Hurts turns the football over yet again. Not only have I no more faith at all in the quarterback and the coach, I'm starting to officially lose my faith in the quarterback because literally there's every game that this has happened, there has been at least one turnover by Jalen Hurts, whether it's an interception or a fumble, because he's got no pocket awareness whatsoever. I just don't understand how you lose that when you had that so well a couple of years ago. And it was up and down last year. You completely lose it this year. That tells me a couple of things. But the biggest thing is he needs better coaching. And so that's also part of the reason here. So the Eagles lose the game. Nick Sirianni is then asked afterwards about why Saquon Barkley only had 2 carries in the team's first 3 drives, which obviously were all 3 and out. And he went something that I compare him to Chip Kelly now to, talking about number of plays. There were only 9 plays in the first 3 drives or whatever he said, so it's hard to give everybody the ball. Well, then give him the ball. It's called prioritizing. Nothing else was working at the time. You tried to get into Goddard, and I get that. You had to go to it, but obviously it wasn't working, and you had no creativity at all whatsoever. So then So then you need to give the ball to Barkley because, as we saw later on in the game, Barkley got the offense going. How about that? That's why you signed him for all the money that you did. Give him the football early and often. Do it. They still haven't done that yet enough, in my opinion, despite the big start that he's had to this season. But you give me the number. You give me a number of plays, and you start talking about that, I'm putting you in the Chip Kelly category. So I officially am going to induct Nick Sirianni into the Hall of Stinkage because I've had it with him.
At home, does your wife Lisa ever talk?
No, because she just ignores me and just goes into another room when I'm going off about stuff.
What do the kids
Sports related, that is.
What do the kids do? Hide?
Mark, again, is already on there, too, saying fire Nick Sirianni. He knows, and he's only 3.
I'm sure he's not pronouncing all the words right.
No, we're still working on that, but that's another topic.
That's another topic. Yeah, your quarterback's struggling, no doubt. He's struggled now for 2 years. He's not playing. I mean, I don't feel like he played last year at the level he played at in 22, and I think he's struggling this year, too.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's a lot of things involved. I think there's some on him, but I think there's some that he needs a new voice to listen to from a coaching standpoint, and I think that also is part of the reason why I want to see Sirianni let go. But if that weren't the only problem, that'd be one thing. But then you have Isaiah Rodgers after the game talking about how he pushed Eagles Bucks player into Cooper DeJean, which of course led to him fumbling the football and the Bucks recovering, and that ended up coming into a 21-0 game. And he said, I don't think it should have been waved off, but they called what they called because he thought it was a savvy veteran move to try to get the penalty and shove the guy into Cooper DeJean. Are you serious? He should be cut. If I were the coach, he'd be cut right then and there for even thinking that. To put your team in that kind of spot with the way the game was unraveling anyway, and you try to pull a stunt like that? Are you serious? Especially after all the gambling issues already, and you're already on your back foot to begin with. This guy should not even be on the football team right now. If you're literally going to say something like that and actually think that you can do that and think that's a, quote, savvy veteran move. So he is now in the dope category as well.
You don't appear to be happy.
I'm glad that's coming through.
Yeah, no, it was a little confusing. Yeah.
Like I said, I just give you my honest opinion week in and week out.
And the Eagles have a bye this week?
Thankfully, yes.
Oh, so you're not going to lose?
That's correct.
Yeah, terrific. I'm sure that...
Bye's not over yet.
I'm sure deep down you wanted Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame.
I'm not going to beat on the guy that much today after he passed away yesterday, but no. To me, he does not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. If you cheat, you're out. I don't care what you did on the field. You destroyed the integrity of the game that you made so great when you played, and you destroyed it when you were a manager. So, no, I'm sorry. You're out.
Tyler, I felt there was some gray area there. Did you sense that?
I know many things about Mr. Catrillo, and one of them is he is a black and white guy. There is no gray.
No gray. Yeah. Okay, so what game do you have this week?
This week, we are doing Mifflinburg at Southern Columbia.
Oh, okay. Right. Southern Columbia.
I think it's going to be an interesting game. Southern did not play well last week at all against Danville. I thought that was going to be a little bit better of a game than I thought. I thought Danville was still going to win by a couple of scores in that game, but I didn't think they were going to dominate the way that they did. I at least thought defensively Southern was going to be a lot better than what they were last week. And Mifflinburg's had a really tough schedule this year. They finally got their first win against a Milton team that's struggling this year. And I think they can do some things that can exploit Southern's defense a little bit. And I think this could be a good game. I would probably lean Southern in this game, but I think this is going to be a fairly competitive game. I really do.
And your Yankees, of course, who have not been to the World Series since you were 3 years old.
Junior year of high school.
Going as the number 1 seed. I know you're really excited and will not pace at all during the playoffs.
I still have very low expectations. I'm still shocked beyond belief they have the number 1 seed in the AL, and I'm just waiting for them to, still have the opening round loss.
Oh, brutal. By the way, Tigers and Astros scoreless in the bottom of the first.
Although I have to say, I do think, I shouldn't say that necessarily, I do think the Yankees are in a good spot to get to the LCS because I do think they can beat the Royals or the O's. I'd rather than play the Royals than play the O's again, but I still think that the Yankees can and probably should win this series. But once they get to the LCS, they would not beat a team like Houston, who I think is going to win this series with Detroit. That's going on right now. And I still don't think that they're better than Cleveland. That's kind of how I feel like. But I feel like the Yankees are in a good spot to at least win a series and maybe get to the ALCS.
It's kind of cocky. All right. Sounds good. Hey, remember, when the leaves fall, so does Aaron Judge's average. All right.
And same with Standing.
His has, it can't go any lower.
That's true.
It can't go any lower. All right. Enjoyable, interesting, entertaining, and negative as always.
Oh, and I just want to make sure you guys knew that it was hot in Tampa Bay on Sunday. I'm not sure if you quite got that message.
Yeah, I did, and Tampa Bay practices indoors anyway, so it would actually affected both teams.
Because I don't think that was said enough during the broadcast how hot it was in Tampa Bay.
Next thing you're going to tell me is that Alabama receiver's only 17.
Well, apparently if you had the Fox broadcast, which was the A team, by the way, I thought they had a terrible game. I thought the broadcast was very nauseating to listen to. And I love Kevin Burkhardt, but I thought Tom Brady had a very bad game, put Burkhardt in a lot of awkward spots, was more of a cheerleader than a broadcaster, and I could make a drinking game and probably could have gotten hammered out of the amount of times that they mentioned how hot it was in Tampa and on the field.
Huh.
Everything about that game Sunday annoyed me to no end.
So when it was over, did you pile more work onto the kids? And was it out of anger and spite?
No, because I couldn't do that to them. But even if I wanted to, it was raining because all of a sudden the Suns also has been about as good as the Eagles have been in the last couple of weeks. So, about reliable as the Eagles' defense has been. It's not there. I'm waiting for some sun to come back again.
I think the rain has completely depressed him, Todd.
It is pretty obvious.
So I'll let you go back to hibernating until the sun comes out, which will be Thursday, and maybe tomorrow afternoon.
We'll see. I will be waiting.
Maybe you should work.
Yeah, I'll be doing a little bit of that, too.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Matt.
All right. Talk to you guys next week.
Well, I'll say this. It does cut down on what you and I, the verbiage we have to use.
Days like today, I'm quiet for an hour and a half.
Yeah. All right, back and time to wrap it up. Brought to you by Brewers Outlet in a moment on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
When car repairs get difficult.
Well, I just don't know.
Me neither.
We get good. Sunbury Motors. More than quality new and used cars, Sunbury Motors specializes in complicated auto repair diagnosis. They can handle intricate repairs and even complete auto body with service open Monday through Friday, 7 till 4. And Sunbury Motors has made simple repairs easy. Maintaining your vehicle is necessary. Finding the time to do it is difficult. Welcome to Sunbury Motors Quick Lane. Just walk in or call ahead. Relax in their remodeled waiting room with Wi-Fi, beverages, and snacks. While Sunbury Motors factory-trained techs take care of your oil change, tire alignments, brakes, and inspections. Quick Lane, 6:30 to 6, Monday through Friday, Saturday, 6:30 till 2. Sunbury Motors, Ford and Hyundai, North 4th Street, Sunbury. And Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. We take the out of auto repair.
All right, great to have you with us. Well, that was quite the trip.
You knew that was coming as soon as that Eagles game was as bad as it was in the first half.
The whole thing was bad. Second half was bad too.
Well, yeah.
I mean, they didn't play. They didn't play well. The only two things they did right was Barkley had a long run, and they ran back an extra point for 2.
I was going to say they got there on time. They got that right at least.
Are we sure?
Well, that's true.
That part I'm not sure about.
At least his defense didn't give up 18 for 18 to Jared Goff last night.
Yeah. Goff. In fact, Goff, under the category of who cares, Dan Campbell says they handed out game balls, and when they asked him about Goff's, was he 20 for 20?
It's 18, something like that.
And he said, "Oh man, I didn't give him a game ball." He said, "I feel like a dope." It doesn't matter. Right? It doesn't matter. The Pete Rose stuff. All right. Is amazing. We know what he did in the field. I mean, nobody played harder. Played with a pure love for the game. But the off-the-field stuff is just crazy. John Dowd led a major mafia investigation for the Justice Department, so they brought him in. And, the names that come back from this thing, Tommy Giosa, remember him? Right? Remember that name coming up? Who had been with Rose, Paul Jansen? Jeez.
I was going to say, the guy I remember was the muscle-bound guy with the feathered hair.
Tommy Giosa.
All right.
Yep, because he was at Gold's Gym. And Ron Peters and Rose wouldn't back down. The problem is Dowd wouldn't back down, and neither would Bart Giamatti. And Fay Vincent, who at that time was the assistant commissioner, met with Rose and left the meeting thinking that Rose thought he was untouchable, that he was a national treasure.
That's how you get yourself in those situations.
There's a 225-page report, 9 volumes of exhibits covering thousands more pages. And it detailed the gambling. That in a span of less than 3 months in 1987, he bet on 412 baseball games, including 52 on the Reds, usually $2,000 a game.